Hi, my name's Brendan. I'm with Family Piano Co. in Waukegan, Illinois. And today we're going to look at three similar pianos, all by the Conover Cable company. One that is rebuilt and sounds fantastic. One that is a little older, has a small crack in the soundboard. And one that has significant soundboard cracks that are really impacting the sound of the instrument. So I hope this helps give you a realistic look at how soundboard cracks do affect the sound of an instrument. First up, this Conover Cable 77 is a 5'8" grand piano. This one was rebuilt about 20 years ago. And so the soundboard on it's perfect. The strings are newer, the hammers are newer. It's also a little bigger than the other two pianos we're going to look at today. So this one's 5'8", the other pianos are 5 foot and 5'2". So I'm going to play a little on this and show you a few things to listen for. Whenever you're trying out an instrument, I always recommend you try something in the bass, the mid, and the treble. And today, how we listen to the bass is going to be especially important for the sound of the impact of the soundboard cracks. So nothing super dramatic there. It works the way it's supposed to work. It has just a nice rich sound from bottom to top. It's fairly consistent. And there's going to be a little bit of tonal variation between the specific notes. But overall, it's going to be fairly consistent. On pianos, you have this structural element called the break. And that's kind of where all this cast iron kind of comes in to reinforce. And that's also where the strings switch from kind of going in one direction to the other direction for this overstrung design. And as I play the notes, and somebody did their job. When it shifts from one side to the other side, you shouldn't really be able to hear it. Sometimes you'll have a little tonal differences right there, but on this one, it's pretty consistent. So this is sort of our baseline right here. This Conover has just a beautiful, immaculate soundboard. Now, as you notice, there is grain in here, so there are going to be lines underneath the strings, so it might be hard to tell what's going on. Grain is totally natural and reasonable. You want grain on this big piece of wood that came from a tree. This is important. And one of the reasons why soundboard cracks occur is because trees don't grow in big sheets like this. You got to kind of cut it and shape it and put these pieces of wood next to each other. So you're going to have these seams that can open up when you have big swings in humidity or temperature, especially. So environmental impact is kind of the #1 cracker of soundboards. So let's move on to the next piano. Here's the second of our three pianos. This one is a Conover 66. It's going to be one size smaller. It's right about 5 foot long, so it's going to be a little shorter. 1959 was when it was originally built, but it wasn't rebuilt. So everything on here is original condition. So age definitely plays more into effect here. And then this one does have some minor cracks in the soundboard I want to show you. So. Apologize for the tuning, it's also a little bit out of tune, but so as you can kind of hear down here in the bass, it does lose some power, but it's not too bad. here's where the break is. Not too bad. And here is the crack we are talking about. So it kind of runs along here. So it's certainly noticeable, but it's not too big. It's actually fairly tight. You can't really see light or anything coming through. It looks like there was a little bit of maybe minor repair on it at some point. So not super noticeable in terms of how it impacts. Now, over time, the piano will get a little bit brighter. So the hammers will harden, the strings will oxidize. You can kind of see that these strings aren't as bright as they used to be. And that will add to the brightness overall. So you definitely hear this as being a brighter piano, but it doesn't really rob the bass too much of any power. So that's a little bit there. And one other thing, I highly recommend crawling underneath the piano and looking at it from the underside, because sometimes there are cracks that you can see from the underside that you can't see from up top. So you can kind of see there's one here, and then we kind of have some right here. So it's one of those things that the ability to see these cracks, there are pianos out there that look totally beautiful up top, but when you look at it from the underside, you find these. So that's, but once again, noticeable, but not terrible. Okay, so this is our third and final piano. This is the Cable. It's a 5'2", 1929, so similar age to the first piano, slightly larger than the last piano that we looked at. And I'm going to play a little something for you, and then I'll show you the soundboard. That song sounds nice. It has a more balanced tone than the brighter piano we just listened to. So far, there's a lot going for it. It has this nice darker cabinet that looks nice. This particular song, when I'm playing in the mid-range, it sounds pretty nice. But I do want to talk a little bit about the bass as we're kind of going through here, and I'll show you the soundboard here in a second. Being pretty dead to a little bit better, and then right at the break it made a pretty dramatic change. So we've got the break right here. So right there, you can really hear that, and how the bass has a really lost a lot of power. So here's the same decal and everything on the last piano, but as you can kind of tell, the soundboard crack is much more substantial. There's a lot more distance in there, and there's several of them, where we can kind of see some down here in the bass especially, and these are even more corroded than the last one, and just more up and down here. Very minor ones, but it's just the collection of them is kind of a problem. Kind of runs through this support structure right here. And then as we look at it from different angles, it also has some cracks right here right by the bridge, which is pretty problematic. And from this angle, you can really see there's even like a height difference in that crack, some separation. So there's just a lot that's really a problem with this piano. And then if you look underneath the piano, there's even more than what you can see up here. So that's where I think a lot of people's fears about soundboard cracks come into play, where you see some of these major soundboard cracks. They really do drain the power out of the instrument, especially on the bass end of it all, especially in this instrument. So there you have it. We've taken a look at one piano that has some pretty significant soundboard cracks that are really affecting the sound of the instrument. We looked at, in our second instrument, we looked at one that had a minor soundboard crack that was noticeable, but did not really impact the power of the bass or any of the sounds. It was impacted by age. It was a bit of a brighter piano. And then with the first piano, the rebuilt Conover, it was a larger size, so it had more going there, but it had just a much bigger, richer tone because it had a pristine soundboard and newer strings and newer hammers and everything in it. So I hope this helps you kind of get a sense of not just the theoretical impact of soundboard cracks, but how we as piano experts tend to see them as we interact with our different instruments. Thank you.